Good morning, everybody, and welcome to the July 15th Victims Compensation Board meeting. Before we begin with today's noticed agenda, I wanted to take a moment to acknowledge the change in membership on the board. Member Chavarro, Rick Chavarro, the State Controller Betty Yee's designee on the board, recently retired after a very long and distinguished state service, including a decade on this board. And on behalf of the board and the victims and people of the state, I want to thank Mr. Chavarro for his service and wish him well as he starts his retirement. And I'd also like to take this opportunity to welcome State Controller Betty Yee's new designee on the board, Sean Silva, who has just been sworn in and is here with us today. And Mr. Silva, if you'd like to take just a minute to introduce yourself and tell us a bit about your background.
Thank you. I've been an attorney here with the State Controller's Office for almost 21 years now. Not near the longevity of Rick, but I've had a chance to see, at least have some experience with the operations of the office. And I do have a little bit of a history in criminal law. I was a district attorney, deputy district attorney for a few years at the beginning of my career. So some of the discussions about crimes and the elements and that kind of those kinds of issues are something that I have some experience with. Other than that, I'm here to represent the controller and hopefully provide the sound guidance or sound participation.
Thanks very much, Mr. Silva. Welcome, and we're looking forward to working with you. Council, would you please call the roll?
Certainly. Member Becton. It appears you're on mute.
Yes. Present.
Thank you. Member Silva.
Present.
Chair Ravel.
Present.
Good morning. Item 1 is the approval of the minutes for the May 20th, 2021 board meeting.
Is there any discussion, additions, or corrections to the minutes from the board? Seeing none, do I have a motion to approve item 1?
So moved, Becton.
And I'll second.
Is there any public comment on this item?
Okay, seeing none, Council, will you please call the roll?
Certainly. And in this instance, I will not call Member Silva as he wasn't present and would not know whether or not the minutes are accurate. Member Becton.
Yes, approved.
Chair Ravel.
Approve.
Motion passes.
Thank you. The next item is item 2, public comment. This is the opportunity for the public to comment on items that are not on the agenda. As any items discussed during public comment have not been agendized, the board is not permitted to take any action on these matters at this meeting. For those on the phone, if you previously indicated your desire to offer comments during this agenda item, we will be calling on you by name or phone number. For those participating via Zoom, please raise your hand if you wish to offer comment, and we will acknowledge you and let you know when it is your turn to speak. I see Mr. Gallegos. There you are. Does Mr. Gallegos wish to speak at this time? You need to unmute, please.
I express that this is my third time participating in the meeting, and today I have a Tata Sanat interpreter, and I just want to let you know that I am still pushing for an appeal on application number 82079099427, and I'm also informing that I'm doing what I can to coordinate with the OPD and with the district attorney office to overturn the case. And I'm just letting know that I still believe that these perpetrators do not deserve to walk away for they did. Whatever action they do to a person, a victim, they have to take consequences. And with the victims the Victim Compensation Board, I am letting know that I still believe that denial is not the best decision. So please reconsider my appeal. I'm still waiting to hear back from what you have decided. Thank you.
Seeing no other wishes to make a public comment.
Thank you, Mr. Gallegos, for appearing again and for the update.
Item 3 is the Executive Officer Statement, which will be presented by Executive Officer Linda Gledhill.
Good morning, board members. First, I also want to thank Mr. Shervaro for all of his dedication to Cal VCB board. It was certainly preceded my time and many others here, but we know he had a long and dedicated service to our board. And I'd also like to welcome Mr. Silva and look forward to working with him as a member of the board. As you know, the legislature and the governor have been working on a final budget for the 21-22 fiscal year. Included in that spending plan is the $33 million general fund backfill for Cal VCB. We're grateful for the support, which ensures that we can carry out our mission and compensate all eligible victims of crime. Moving forward, we will continue to work with the governor's office and the legislature to improve our financial outlook and help us grow our programs and services and outreach. We look forward to being a thriving state organization that's not relying on a general fund backfill every year just to be able to do our basic services. So that is a continued effort on our part. Also included in the budget, as you may have read, is a $7.5 million funding for Cal VCB to administer the program to compensate victims of state-sponsored sterilization. Sadly, this practice was allowed by eugenics laws that existed in California between 1909 and 1979 and was carried out on women in state prisons after that. The budget provision sets aside money to pay survivors an estimated $25,000 each. We're working on plans right now to stand up this program, which includes outreach, a specific application, and processing payments. Our goal is to reach as many of the remaining survivors of this practice, which number about 700 as possible, and have them apply for and receive compensation. I also want to update the board on our Trauma Recovery Center grants. The board, as you know, after the board voted to approve the grants in May, our staff has been working diligently to execute the contracts. One of the TRC grant recipients, Fathers and Family of San Joaquin, notified us that it intends to close effective September 3rd, 2021. We will fund their operations through that date. Fathers and Families will use only a small portion of the $967,000 that it was awarded. And consequently, after it closes, the final claims are processed. We will expect that there will be money, a significant amount, to redistribute to the other 11 TRCs that also won grant awards for that 2-year period. Moving on to a handful of internal updates for the board, I wanted to let you know that we have rolled out our long-term telework plan to staff. Starting on September 1st, each employee will be required to come into the office at a minimum of 1 day a week. They will come in with their units to foster better communication, training, and team building. Many of our employees have been successful working from home, and a survey we conducted showed that they want to continue doing so. We believe this hybrid approach strikes the right balance. It capitalizes on all the advantages of teleworking while maintaining regular in-person contact in the office to build a strong organizational culture. Finally, I have 2 important changes to our executive leadership team to announce. First, Janine Fenton, our Deputy Executive Officer for Administration, is retiring. Ms. Fenton, who joined the board in 2019, has been a tremendous source of support for me from the first day I walked into Cal VCB. At her time at Cal VCB, she has worked extremely hard on several important initiatives. She launched our employee recognition program with a full guide on how to recognize, evaluate, and reward the achievements of our staff. She also established clear processes for hiring, administration, and worked tirelessly during the past year to help us deal with the ever-changing COVID rules and restrictions. Cal VCB was just the final chapter of her career in state service, which included being the Chief Deputy Director at the California Department of Aging, where she also held the Administrative Division Deputy Director position since 2015. And she held multiple positions at the California Employment Development Department from 1988 to 2015. I wish her all the best in her next chapter. The second change is the promotion of Natalie Mack to Chief Deputy Executive Officer, effective July 1st. Ms. Mack served as the Deputy Executive Officer over the Victim Compensation Program since May of 2020. In this role, she has done exceptional work, leading multiple efforts to improve the Cal VCB program, including decreasing processing time, implementing workload tracking, and aligning policies with statutes. She's also worked closely with staff, managers, and her colleagues to strengthen our program operations. Before coming to Cal VCB, Ms. Mack developed her leadership skills through a long and impressive state career, including 8 years at the Employment Development Department. And beginning her state career, she worked at several other state entities, the Controller's Office, CDCR, Department of Healthcare Services, and the Department of Justice. So I'm confident that Ms. Mack will continue to help Cal VCB grow in her new position. Then those are my updates, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thank you for the updates, Executive Officer Gledhill. It's particularly interesting to hear about the telework arrangements. I think it's going to be a feeling out period for a while where we're trying to figure out what this new environment looks like. But it sounds like you've got a good plan for it.
Thank you. I know that it's long discussions. We did let staff know in early June. We wanted to really make sure that we gave them ample opportunity to plan and prepare for coming into the office 1 day a week. And with the September 1st start date, we hope that those with children who would be going back to school, that will make that transition just a little bit easier, because we know it's going to be challenging for everybody.
For sure. Are there any questions or comments on the executive officer's report from the board?
Okay, seeing none, we'll move to item 4, which is the legislative update, which will be presented by Deputy Executive Officer Andrew Lamar.
Good morning. In your binder is a list of all the bills that could impact Cal VCB and that we are tracking. As Linda mentioned, a program to compensate the victims of state-sponsored sterilization was put into a budget trailer bill. That measure is nearly identical to what is in AB 1007 by Assemblymember Carrillo, which was making its way through the legislative process. We estimate that approximately 700 victims of this practice are still alive today and would be eligible for compensation, but based on the experience of 2 other states that have done this, we only expect about a quarter of them to apply. The budget bill provides $7.5 million for the program, with $2 million for implementation and outreach costs, up to $1 million for the establishment of plaques and memorial markers, and the remaining $4.5 million to compensate victims. This week, the legislature is wrapping up all of its policy hearings for this year's session, and on Friday, it goes on summer recess. The legislature returns to session on August 16th and is due to adjourn for the year on September 10th. AB 1593 by Assemblymember Gonzalez contains a $5.7 million appropriation to pay for 5 erroneous conviction claims approved by Cal VCB. That bill has been passed by both houses of the legislature and sent to the governor. In addition, all the bills in your binder that were scheduled for hearings this week have passed out of their respective policy committees. Lastly, we have continued to have discussions with the sponsors of SB 299, which would compensate victims of police violence. That bill has passed the Senate and the Assembly Public Safety Committee and will be heard next by the Assembly Appropriations Committee in August. Those are the highlights. I'm happy to answer any questions you may have.
Thank you, Deputy Lamar, for the update and for keeping on top of these developments. Are there any questions or comments from the board on legislation?
Is there any public comment on this item? Seeing none, item 5 is the contract report, which will be presented by Executive Officer Linda Gledhill.
Good morning, board members. The contract report is in your binder. These are all informational items just to inform the board of our spending and purchases. The notable one, excuse me, is for laptops. Again, this is to support our going forward, a telework plan to make sure that employees, no matter where they're working, have good CalVCB equipment that they can use. So happy to answer any questions.
Are there any questions or comments from the board?
Is there any public comment on this item? Seeing none, we will move to item 6, which is the Penal Code Section 4900 claim of William Richards, which will be presented by Chief Counsel Kim Gutierrez.
Good morning. On June 13th, 2018, William Richards submitted an application for compensation as an erroneously convicted person pursuant to Penal Code Section 4900. The application is based on Mr. Richards' 1997 murder conviction, for which he was found factually innocent by the San Bernardino County Superior Court after serving 19 years in prison. According to the proposed decision, Mr. Richards is entitled to an automatic recommendation for compensation in the amount of $1,165,920, representing $140 per day for the 8,328 days that he was wrongfully imprisoned. Mr. Richards is represented by Caitlin Weisberg of McLean, Bednarski and Litt, and Wendy Cohen of the law offices of Wendy Cohen, both of whom I believe are with us today. The Attorney General is represented by Deputy Attorney General Timothy O'Hare, who is also with us.
Thank you, Ms. Gauthier. We will hear first from counsel for Mr. Richards.
Thank you very much. First, I'd like to thank the board and in particular Staff Attorney Harbarger for her work on this claim in short order to get us to this July meeting. And we would simply argue and respectfully request that the board adopt the proposed decision. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Weisberg. Mr. Richards, I see you're present. Would you like to address the board? I think you're muted, Mr. Richards.
I'd just like to thank you all for consideration so I can move on with my life. You know, I went into prison with home, family, all the things a man has and works all his life, but all I came home with was advanced cancer. So I would really appreciate your consideration here. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Richards. Now we will hear from Mr. O'Hare from the Attorney General's office.
We'll submit on the proposed decision.
Thank you, Mr. O'Hare. I just want to thank counsel for your representation in this matter and Mr. Richards for bringing this claim. It's just a horrible injustice that you've suffered. Is there any discussion on this item by the board? Do I have a motion on item 10?
I'd move to adopt the staff decision.
Second? I'll second.
Is there any public comment on this item?
Counsel, will you please call the roll?
Certainly. The motion before the board is the adoption of the hearing officer's proposed decision in the Penal Code Section 4900 matter of William Richards. Member Becton,
Yes.
Member Silva,
Aye.
Chair Ravel.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you, counsel. The board will now convene the closed session pursuant to Government Code Section 11126 sub C3 to discuss numbers 1 through 80 of the Victim Compensation Program. And board members, if you would please remember to turn off your cameras and audio inputs before calling into the conference line. Hello again. The board is reconvening into open session pursuant to Government Code 11126 sub C3. Do I have a motion for numbers 1 through 80 of the Victim Compensation Program?
Member Silva, I believe you're on mute.
Sorry, thank you. I would move to adopt the staff's recommendations.
I second.
Council, will you please call the roll?
Certainly. The motion before the board is approval of items 1 through 80 of the Victim Compensation Program. Member Becton,
Aye.
Member Silva,
Aye.
Chair Ravel,
Aye.
motion passes.
Thank you. Is there any other business that needs to come before the board today? Seeing and hearing none, do I have a motion to adjourn?
I move that we adjourn.
I would second that motion.
Council, please call the roll.
Member Becton,
Aye.
Member Silva,
Aye.
Chair Ravel,
Aye.
meeting adjourned.
The next meeting is scheduled to occur on September 16, 2021. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank
Thank you,
you.
everybody.